Well, thanks to everyone for recording. Thanks for arranging the workshop. I think yesterday you have seen that how to create variables and arguments, performing some operations, which is done by when I ready. I think today we're going to see about Excel automation. Uh, Me and Sai Kiran is going to be explain about the Excel automation. Before going to start the session, let me introduce myself. I'm Shivnarayana Swamy. I'm working as a technical team lead from Our Tech Private Limited. I have total 5+ years of IT experience, whereas 3 years into RPA. So that's it from my end. So I'm handovering the session to Sai Kiran.
Yeah. Hey, hi everyone. Very good morning, good evening. Who has joined the session from different time zones? Yep. Let's start the session. So I think like yesterday we have gone with very basic session that was related to learning what is a variable, like how do we use or utilize the arguments, and also we have seen a set of couple of string operations, right? So let me just have a recap of those things, and let's jump into like today's session, which is mostly targeting on the Excel automations. So I'll be initially taking the very basic layman terminology of what is data table, like how do we create and all these things. Uh, like Siva, like can you just forward the screen? I'm like move the slides, please. Siva, I think like we are stuck on the same screen. Yes, yes. So yeah. So let me introduce about myself. Basically, like I'm Kiran, having over like 5+ years of experience with IT industry, and around like 2.5 years of experience working on like RPA domain and all. So presently, I'm working as a senior software engineer at ValueMomentum, Hyderabad, and I've been an active community member and also a seasoned speaker on various topics of RPA from the last couple of years. Fine. So that's a small introduction about myself, and you can easily find me on LinkedIn. You can search with my name, Sai Kiran. Okay, Kondreddy. Fine. So today, let's try to understand this particular agenda. So, what is data table? So, why we use this data table? So, what actually, like, how do we add these rows or columns or delete these things? And the real-time scenarios on the filter data table, the sort data table, and remove duplicate rows and lookup data table, and how we will also see like how to loop the data table. Okay, so let me just share my screen so that like we can directly jump into the practicality or the technical terms we can try to see in the UiPath. Okay, so please let me know if my screen is visible so that like we can just go ahead and discuss on topics.
Yes, Kiran, it is visible. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. So let me just try to enter data table here so that like we can see a lot of activities that was available in the activities panel, right? So let's try to basically understand all these activities or most of the activities that we try to utilize in the real-time scenarios. So before trying to go like what is a data table, we'll try to understand the basic terminology we utilize in these things. So before going to learn about these things, let me try to define a basic like definition of a data table. So data table is basically it's a combination of a rows and columns where we can try to store in a container of a multiple data here. It's nothing but we can see the data in the form of rows and columns, right? So where we can utilize these rows and columns, basically we can try to see this data in terms of a database, or else we can see that sort of a data in terms of CSV or else the Excel files, right? So today our major agenda is to just learn how can we do that set of operations or automations on an Excel. Okay. So let's try to drag and drop each of these things basically and try to understand these things. Okay, fine. First, let me try to just utilize this first activity here. So this build data table is utilized to create a data table. Okay. So basically like how we yesterday created like a string variable or a Boolean variable or as a generic variable. So we can also create a data table variable. But most of the scenarios in real time, we'll be trying to get the output from a read range, nothing but an Excel stored in the data table. But let's try to understand how can we create a data table, how can we add some set of data into this. Okay, so I'm trying to create some columns here. So let it be something called name. It's a string type. Okay. So let it be something called gender, which is also a string type. Let it be age, which is something called an integer. And let me just try to create something called location, which is also a string values. Okay. So now as I created something called a columns, okay, I can also manually create something called a row data here. Okay. So let me write my names here, Kiran. So gender is male. So age is something called 28 and location is Hyderabad or HYD. So in a similar way, I can add multiple set of data here. Okay. So let me just try to create a set of small data, but in real times, we will try to read a major bulk set of data. It might be having a 10,000 rows or 1,000 rows or 2,000 rows based on the business requirements here. Okay. So let me just try to create a basic data. Okay. So it's 25 years and she's from something called Noida location. Okay. So maybe Harika, she's a female, age 34, and she's from HYD location. Okay. Okay, female, so age 28, and she's also from something like Chennai location. Okay, so this is the basic set of data I have created, which consists of name, gender, age, and location. So you might be having a doubt like, I want to just position this gender in the the second position or the third position. Can I do that? Yes, you can easily drag and drop these things so that you can easily modify the index of these particular things. Okay. So that is what we can try to create a basic set of data which we want to perform under this particular data set. Okay. So you can create n number of rows or columns based on your business requirements. Okay. So I have created this particular data here, data table. So once I created, it should be stored in a data table, right? To create a variable, so I have a shortcut key called Control K. So where I'll be saying that it's something called input dt. So where my data will be stored in the input dt. So if I go to variables, I can see that my set of data was stored in a data table variable type, right? So that is my data which was there. So can I print this data which was there in the form of rows and columns inside your message box? Of course, no. So basically like message box try to understand the data which was there in a string type, okay, string formats. So in that particular scenario, what we need to do is nothing but we have a command. Okay. So we have a command called output data table where it will try to convert your data which was there in the form of a data table into a string variable. So your data is nothing but you need to provide all the inputs in the properties panel, right? The properties panel will try to help you out. So what is the input, what is the output, and what are the set of properties you need to set when you're trying to work on a particular activity here. So my agenda is to convert your data table variable into a string variable, right? So I'm trying to pass that input dt and I'm trying to create a string variable. Control K, str dt. Okay. So I have that particular data which is stored here in the form of a string variable called string data. Okay. Now I want to convert this thing and I want to just print this thing inside a message box. So I'll be using an activity called message box to print my string data. So what is your data? It's nothing but str_dt. So that is my basic thing here. So I have created a data table and trying to print that in the message box. So we can also do this set of operations inside the Excel, but it will take more time. So let's try to understand in a very basic level. So I'm trying to utilize this set of activities. Okay, so I'll try to save all and try to run the file. So basically what it says, it's nothing but you have a name, gender, location, and age, and this is your set of data. Fine. So that is what basically my operation of creating and printing it. So I can also do some set of other operations too, right? So let's say that I want to know like how many rows of data was there and how many columns of data was there here. And index every time starts with a 0 in a data table. So index of this particular name is 0, gender is 1, location is 2, and the age is 3. In total, we have like 4 columns and like 5 rows of data. Okay. So we can add more set of data to distinguish the things. Okay, you can just easily save the data. Okay, fine. So now what I'm saying, I want to just see the data which is having something like a rows and columns, right? So I can try to utilize the same message box where I will say that I want to initially try to get the rows count. Okay. So I need to do a plus symbol, say that it's a rows. So that table is input dot rows dot count. Okay. So now we have the data, but it still says that it's a red symbol. So we need to convert that as a string. To string is the function. Okay. Plus VP. So I'm trying to print that data in the new line. Okay. And I want to even get what? The column values also, right? So I want to get the column count. So I will say that columns count is basically your data table, nothing but input dt dot columns count dot toString. Okay, fine. So now I just don't want to like run this output data table and all. You can easily like cut this thing or delete this thing. Okay, so I've saved my process and I'm trying to run the file. So basically you can see like how many rows and how many columns were there. Okay, fine. So now I have created something called the data table and I was just trying to print the data. So we can also, since I have some data set of data here, and what I want to do is nothing but sometimes I want to add some rows or delete some rows or add some columns or delete some columns. So how can we do that? We have set of commands for doing that. So what I basically want to do is nothing but I want to add a data row. Okay. So let's try to keep it here itself so that we can just try to understand. So in the properties, nothing but you want to add a row, right? So in which data table you want to add? I want to add it in the input dt. Okay. So what is a row? So you have the structure, right? So it should be in the array format. So I want to basically add the name. Okay. It says that it's Ram. And after that, you have something called gender. So I'll say that it's male. And after that, you have something called age. It can be like this, and you have a location. So I'll keep it as like Delhi. Okay. So I have the data now. So this RAM data earlier, which was not there, will be printed now. Okay. So you can easily distinguish this thing by again utilizing the same command. Okay. Since you can see like how many rows of data was there earlier and how many rows of data was there after doing that particular set of operation. Okay. So I'm just trying to run the file. So earlier you have like 6 rows of data, but I have, okay, so fine. Maybe I have given a wrong format. Okay, let me just see the structure of the particular thing in the data table. So the location was the third one. Okay, fine. So I have mismatched this particular data. So the location was the third one, and the final one is the age. Still provide that thing. Okay, let me run the file. So we have now 7 rows of data. Earlier you have like 6 rows of data, but now we have like 7 rows of data. And you can see the RAM data was there. Now my scenario was to delete the the second row of data. The index is nothing but the Siva index is something called a 0 and 1. So you can still do that. So for that, I'll be trying to use the remove data column. So go to the properties. Okay, column I was trying to remove, right? I want to remove the row. Okay, remove data row. So go to the properties. So in which data table you want to remove? I want to remove an input DT. So you can just provide the row index. The row index is nothing but 1, and you can easily connect the data. Okay. So let me just try to run the file. Now you have 6 rows of data, and again you have like 6 rows of data because like you have deleted one extra row which is of Siva value. Now we can see that like the Siva value has been deleted. Okay. In the similar fashion, we can also add the rows and delete the delete the rows and delete the columns too. Okay. So let me just keep it aside. So now what I want to do is nothing but I just want to add a column here. So add a data column. Okay. So go to the properties. So in which thing you want to add? I want to add it in input DT. What type it is? It's a string type. So what is the column name? So I want to add something called country. Okay. So for all the persons are of having a default value, so I'll say that all these people are from India itself. Okay. So my task was done, and I just connect these things, and you can still run your file. So this is how you basically try to add your rows and columns. So now you can see the new country column was added. Fine. So this is fine. Now let's try to jump into very interesting scenario. Let's say that you want to filter the table now. Okay, filter the data table. Like how can you do that? Let's try to understand those things. Okay, so now what I want to do is nothing but I just want to filter the data table, which is having a multiple set of data. So what I do is nothing but I'll try to use a filter data table. Okay. So which data you want to filter first of all? So first of all, I want to see a persons who are from the Hyderabad region, HYD region. So it's nothing but you have like 3 people which is from the Hyderabad region. So first of all, I want to get that data. Okay. So what you do is nothing but you need to configure a filter. So I go to the input DT, output is also in the input DT. So which column you want to do? So it's on the location column. I want to see if it is equals to something, a value of HYD. Okay, that was a basic thing I just want to do. So here you can see like whether you want to keep that particular rows or delete that particular rows. Like what are the set of columns you want to read and all. Okay, so you can just modify this thing based on your business requirements and all. So let's say that you have like 100 columns of data, but you want to read only like 10 columns of data. You can just utilize this thing, like keep these 10 columns of data. So remove the unwanted things. Okay, so let's go with a basic filter of one filter. Okay, so let's try to run the file. So basically you can see people from Hyderabad region, which is of 3 people, right? That is what we are discussing. Now I want to see the persons who are only male. I just want to remove the persons which is of female and all. I want to see only the male persons. Okay, so you can still add the filter in the same one. So configure the filter, just add the filter here. And so you want to keep the filter in the gender where it says that it equals to the gender of male. Okay. So in that particular fashion, I can just still run the file and I'll be getting only 2 rows of data now. So Kiran and Siva is only the set of data I'll be getting. Okay, fine. In the similar fashion, let's say that this is how you could try to do something using the filter data table. So this is very much important when you're trying to do it in the real-time scenarios. So there will be like thousands of rows as an input, but you want to work on a particular set of data with the predefined conditions. So that sort of a conditions can be filtered here using the filter data table. This is very much a powerful activity we try to use in a very regular manner in every sort of a project. Okay, fine. So after talking about the filter data table, so let's talk about some scenario here. So there is one scenario that I have a very small set of data. Okay, but in the real time, you might be going with like 1,000 rows or like 10,000 rows of data, and you might come across data which is in a duplicate manner. So let's say that I have the same set of data, Kiran, which is repeating twice. Okay, so 29, and I still add some set of data like Rohit is a male and he's from also the Hyderabad region, and 28. And also I'll add Brinda and a female, Bangalore, and of 27 age. Okay, so let me just see that we have the same data, right? Yeah, fine. So now we have more number of rows, but the thing is that I have a duplicate rows of data. So let's say that I want to enter this data into some web application. So here I was trying to like utilize more efforts. The bot is trying to do the same repetitive work, which is of same transactions, right? It is just trying to kill my time for the bot and all, right? So in order to just avoid that sort of a duplicate transaction data in your process, so we'll try to use a simple command, remove duplicate rows. Okay, we have something called remove duplicate rows, which is very much powerful. So your data, it will no need to provide anything. You need to provide your input DT where you want to store your output. I want to store it in the same DT and just connect with your particular data. Okay, so if I just disable this thing and try to run, so we can see that there is a duplicate data, and I will enable and run so that you can identify the data. So you can see that Kiran was repeating, Rohit was repeating, and even Vrinda was repeating, right? But now, like, I will try to enable this activity inside your workflow and try to run the file. Okay. So now you can see, okay, Rohit, okay, it's of different locations, right? I need to just, okay, Kiran was removed, right? Let me just modify the data. Sorry, it's my mistake. So Rohit was from which location? He was from the Bangalore, right? Bangalore. And Vrinda was from Noida location. Noida, right? So let me just save the data again and run the file so that you can just see that removing of unwanted data. Okay. So I'm just having a mismatch of data. Cool. So the Rohit of 27 years because of the unwanted data here. And Vrinda is of 28. Okay. So it will try to verify all the columns of data. So let me cross verify once again. Vrinda female, Noida, and 25, right? And Rohit male, Bangalore 27. Okay, so now you can just remove that particular data. Okay, now we can see that set of unwanted duplicate rows was removed, right? So it tries to like verify each and every column data. Okay, it's not that like Kiran was there and you want to delete that particular column. So you can delete that particular row now. So it purely depends upon like how your data was there inside your workflows. Okay, fine. So now we'll try to jump quickly into another command and hand over the session to Swamy. And there is also another scenario that I want to have a less set of data to quickly understand the things. I just want to add something called a date of joining, maybe. Okay, so it is of a date or time. Okay, so and I want to just add some data randomly here. 109 something 2022. Okay, so 2021. Okay, and I want to process the data from 11 98, and I can see the data from 11 12 say in 2022. Okay, and the last set of data again 11 1988 or like 85. The last set of data I'll have 3 23 and 2000. Okay, so now I have a data, so which is of different timings, right? So if you can see that the year was 2022 21 88 22, so it's of mix and match of data, but I want to process the data which is of very recent year. I want to process which is of 2022. I mean, like I want to just sort the data. There might be scenarios that you have a set of data and you want to process the data which is of very old age scenarios, whereas like you want to process which is of very latest date. So in that particular scenarios, how can I easily do that particular like application or scenario? Okay, so in that particular scenario I can easily jump into a sort data table. Okay, so which will basically try to help me. So in which I'm like data table you want to sort, I want to sort it in input DT. So where you want to store your data, I want to store in the same data. So in which column you want to do, so I want to do it on date of joining DOJ. Okay, so let me just go to the properties, and where is this column name, right? So it's DOJ, right? And you want to ascend or descend, I want to see it in an ascending manner. Let's try to see that. Fine, try to run the file. So you can see that the data which comes here is the oldest one, 85 88 2000 2021 2022 and 2022. If you see in the actual data, it is a mix and match of data where you can see the 2022 at the first, 2000 at the last, and a mix and match of data, but you can still sort the data. Okay, so you can just also do it in a reverse manner of descending the data too. So let me just run the file quickly. See here, so now comes the latest data which is of 2022 2022 21 2000 1988 and 1985. So it's not that like you can sort only a single column. After this particular data you can also sort the other data. Okay, so that is how we can try to utilize the sort data table. So let me just try to go with the last scenario where and how you can just try to loop your data inside your data table. So let's say that I have a data table and I just want to read the data of your name column. Okay, so for that what I'll do is nothing but I'll use for each data row in a data column, right? So let me just use that particular command for each row in a data table. Okay, so what do you want to do? You want to loop it inside your input DT. Fine. So what you want to do is nothing but I want to get the data of your first column of all the rows. So you can directly go with the current row of 0, which will give me all the names in the particular data table. So you can just run the file where you can get your names: Kiran, Siva, Rohit, Brinda, Harika, Kishore, right? You can also do or achieve the same task using get row item. Okay, so get row item. So go to the properties. The row is like you're trying to get the current row, right? Or else like you can also get multiple data in the same column itself. Let me try to use this thing. Let's say that I want to get even the date of joining, or current row of two, will give me something called location, right? 0, 1 and 2, right? 0, 1 and 2 location, right? So let me just convert to string. String. Okay. So it's the easiest way to just get the data inside your particular columns row. So Kiran from Hyderabad, Siva from Hyderabad, Rohit from Bangalore, Brinda from Noida, and all these things. Fine. So these were the basic set of activities you can try to utilize in every sort of a project using UiPath. Okay. So now we'll try to see this, what we can say, like real-time scenarios, or like how we can try to use the Excel-based activities. And I give my mic to Siva. Siva, you can take over. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Kiran. Thanks Kiran, for the clear explanation about the data tables and expressions.
Yeah.
So when it comes into real-time scenarios, we'll read the data from the Excel and we'll store it into a data table. This is what happens. So when it comes into Excel automation, in UiPath, we have sets of activities. Let me share my screen and present the PPT. So so these are the common keywords we can hear when you're automating Excel in UiPath, like cell, row, column, a data table, row index, column index. These are the common keywords we are here in this Excel automation. So as I told you, when it comes into Excel automation in UiPath, we have two sets of activities. One is Excel activities and workbook activities. So when can we use Excel activities? When can use workbook activities? So if your system already installed with the Excel application, then you go with the Excel activities. If your system does not have the Excel application in your machine, then you have to go with the workbook activities. Okay. So I will give some difference between the two activities. So the first one is you need the Excel application is to be installed in your local machine. When it comes into workbook activities, Excel is not required. Okay. So when it comes into Excel activities, it will be slow because it's using the Excel application in your machine and execute the process. But when it comes into workbook activities, it will be very fast as compared to the Excel activities. So in the Excel activities, you can execute macros, VBA scripts, but when it comes into workbook activities, you couldn't execute macros. Okay, if you have formulas and heavy data into Excel, you might be go with the Excel activities. If you don't have that kind of heavy data, it might be little data like so. The format is really simple. Then you will go with the workbook activities. Okay. So when it comes to best practices, so you should kill the Excel process using kill process activity before you automating any Excel process activities. Because if the instance is already open, maybe it will throw an error. To avoid these errors, you should kill the Excel process before automating it. Okay. So, and one more thing, that instead of performing the Excel operation in the Excel itself, you have to read data into code into data table. There you need to perform the data table operations. That how Sai Kiran has explained. Okay.
Swamy, sorry to interrupt you. I think you
Okay.
need to louder your voice bit.
Okay, might be my mic issue. I'm very sorry about it.
Okay, sure,
So is it clear now?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So fine. So we'll go to this empirical session then. Go to UiPath. So I have opened UiPath. Just let me create a process. So when I'm creating this process, by default, you are getting some dependencies added into your project. I'll show you that. So creating a workspace and adding some dependencies to it, to your current project. So go to manage packages. Here you can see the project dependencies like your path Excel activities, your automation activities, mail activities, and system activities. Okay. So by default, when you're creating any process, these are dependencies default adding into your current process. Okay. So now go to Excel activities. So these are the Excel activities you can see in this panel and workbook activities. So these are the workbook activities. Okay. So if I uninstall these activities, like these dependencies, so we're unable to see that activity into activity panel. So we have to this project dependency.
Swamy, sorry to interrupt you again. We're missing your voice. Could you please be a bit louder?
Sure. So you're unable to see the
Siva, are you speaking something because we are not able to hear anything?
you're able to hear me, right?
Yeah, nothing. We like it's a mute because we are not able to.
So I have added again back.
Wait, let me pause the recording for 1 second. You can continue.
Okay, fine. So now you can see that how to read an Excel activity. So we have read activity from Excel sheet. So let me drag and drop this read activity. So it's throwing an error because we have to use Excel application scope activity when you are using Excel automation. Okay. So when it comes into Excel automation again, so I have to use this activity. So inside this activity only these activities will work. Okay. I need to provide the path of the workbook. Then I need to perform either reading or writing or sorting data or filtering data, any kind of operations you have to perform inside the application scope. Without this activity, these activities will not work. So basically what it happened, so when you're using Excel activities, it's use the Excel in your system. Based on that, it will perform the automation. Okay. When comes into workbook activities, so directly can use it because you can provide the path and you can read the data and you can store it for data table. Okay, fine. So we'll go to the one of the scenario. Niklesh, do you hear me? I mean, you hear me, right? Hello?
Yes, Siva, you
Yes,
can
yes,
continue. We
Swami.
are able
Yeah.
to hear you.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
You are loud and clear.
So now what I will do, I will take a scenario like I have an Excel sheet. So which contains, sorry, uh, so which contains some PO information which related to plant. Okay, I have some like seven PO numbers which contain the plant information as well. I want to filter this data, so I want to extract the data which is the belongs to the plant number 100. Okay, I want to read this data. I mean, I will read this data and filter it based on the plant number and will store into another sheet. Okay, so let me take read range activity. So I need to provide the path. So I'm copying this Excel sheet. Go to the project. I'm putting that file into here in this local project. Okay, just selecting that file path, plan details. Okay, I need to provide the sheet name as well. So which Excel sheet name. The sheet name is nothing but plant. Okay, I just provided plant. Okay, so I want to read the entire sheet. If you want to read the sheet of from A1 to A5, then you can provide the range. If you want to read the entire sheet, then you can make it like double quotes or empty. You can keep it. Okay, once you have the read the data, you can store this data into one data table. So here I'm creating one output variable, data table variable, control K, and providing plant DT. Okay, so the entire sheet data will be stored into this data table. Okay, fine. So I want to filter the data based on the plant number. So for that, I have filter data table activity. Sorry, I missed it, the system activities. So I'm adding this package to the current project. By mistake, I have deleted the previous one. Okay, I'm taking filter data table activity. Here I have to provide the input data table. What is the input data table? I have read the all the plant details and storing into one data table variable. I'm passing that plant DT. So here I have to provide the filter condition. What is the filter condition? The column name I had to provide. Which column? Plant. I want to filter this plant number. So I'm taking this column name. Okay, the condition is like the plant number equal to 100. So if the plant number is 100, I want to keep the data. Okay, I need to provide the output variable. Just I'm creating a new one instead of using the same. Control K, filter DT. Okay, same this condition. Now what it happened? It will read the plan details and storing into one data table. Now I'm filtering the plan DT based on the condition like the plant number equal to 100. I'm storing the data, filter data into filter DT. I want to write this data into one Excel sheet. Otherwise, same Excel sheet in the different sheet. Okay, I have the same Excel sheet. The sheet name is plant. Instead of that, I want to write the data into another sheet. So I'm taking write Excel. So I'm again using workbook activity. So I'm providing the same file path, plan details, and the sheet name is I want to pass new one, plan 1. Okay, and the data table I need to pass filter DT because the output DT stored into filter DT. After filtering the data will be inside the filter DT. So I'm passing the same filter DT. Okay. So before then, I want to close this Excel sheet. Let me execute this one. So execution is completed. Now we can see the result. So it's created a plant 1. Here you're getting the 100 related to plant number 100. Okay, I'm not getting the headers here. So what it happened, because I didn't select the add headers. If I checking the checkbox like add headers, the bot will treat like the first column is a header. Otherwise, it will treat it like a data. Okay, so I'm just clicking the add header checkbox. Now let me execute this again. Run it again. So let me open the Excel again. Yeah, you're getting the PO number as well as the plant number. Okay. So we are reading the entire data and storing into one data table, filtering it based on the condition, either plant number or location based on the condition, and writing this data into either another Excel sheet, either the same Excel sheet with the different sheet name. Okay, so you should provide that sheet name, read range, and the data table. So what is the data table? You have performed operation that should be provided to the write Excel activity. Okay, this is one of the scenario. And go to next one. Here, I will take another scenario. Hello.
So Niklesh, I think again play.
Hello. So I have an employee data that I want to create on filling the form using reading the Excel data and filling into one form. So I have one URL. Let me open that URL. So I have an registration form. There is like you need to fill that employee ID and employee name and employee location. So where I have an Excel sheet with the data with the details. Like employee ID, employee name, and the location. Okay, I want to read this data and fill it into the form and submit the form. So if you have like one or two, you can do it manually. But when you have like thousands of data or might be 500s of data, you have to build a bot to fill this form. Okay, I want to read this data and fill the form. So you can see that one as well. So I'm placing here that file. So I'm picking a new sequence. Form filling. So first I want to launch that form. So for that I'm using open browser activity. So take me open browser activity. Okay. I want to pass the URL here. Okay. So I want to open this URL in the Google Chrome. So I'm selecting the browser type as Chrome. Okay. So let me execute this one. Just I launched the Google Chrome with this URL. Okay. Now I want to pass the employee ID, employee name, and location. For that, I will use the read Excel activity. So again, I'm picking that read range activity to read the Excel sheet. Just I'm picking that Excel file from data. So and sheet name I need to provide. Okay. Just I'm providing the sheet name as well. I want to read the entire sheet. So I'm just not passing any range here. So it will store into one data table. Okay. So click on this read range activity. Providing data table. EMPDT. Okay. Fine. So now I want to enter the data into these forms like employee ID need to pass. To iterate Excel data, so you need to read it into one data table using for each data table activity. I'm taking for each data table activity to iterate this employee data. Okay. Fine. So I need to pass the data table. So what is the data table name we have provided? Employee DT. Just type the employee DT. Okay. Now I want to call the employee ID. First, I want to get the employee ID, then name, employee name, and the location. For that, we have typing the activity to type over there. So indicating on the browser. Selecting that employee ID. So here I need to type the employee ID. How I get it the employee ID? There is a expression like row of column name. What is the column name? ID. You need to pass the ID. So .toString. So you want to convert into string format because when you're typing data, that should be in a string format. Okay. So what the value will get? Row of column name is the first value. This is like 101. So if I'm providing row of name, then I will get the first name. Row of location, then I will get the address. So same like similarly, I need to provide the remaining details as well. Selecting for the employee name. Here I need to provide row of column name. What is the column name? Name. So it will give the employee name. .toString. Similarly, third one as well. Employee location. Row of column name as I need to provide the column name. Location. So this location I'm copying. last two string. Okay, so this will give the employee ID one by one. The first first iteration, I will get 101 Shivaram Gupta and Hyderabad, and the second iteration 102 Pawan Kumar London. So it will every iteration it will give the employee details, these details. Okay, so after getting all the details, I need to click on the submit button. So I'm taking a click activity. To submit the form. Clicking on the submit button. Okay. Once I submitted, clicking on the submit button, it will ask me to resubmit submit another response. Okay. So for that, again, I need to click on the same. Submit another response. Okay. What it will do? Okay. First, it will launch that URL form URL. After that, reading the employee data and storing into one data table. Now we're iterating the values one by one, like employee ID, employee name, and employee location. Okay. So let me execute this one. Before that, I want to close this. Let me close Excel as well. Now execution has started. Just launch the Google Chrome browser and opening the form. Entering the employee ID, employee name, and Hyderabad location or submitting. And come back and submitting another response. So this is how you can iterate Excel values through a data table. So when it comes into sending a multiple emails, might be you have a list of email IDs, might be 100 or 200. You want to send is same maybe Pongal wishes or like some festival wishes. So you can take all the emails in an Excel sheet and read it into one data table. Then you can use a send email activity. So what we'll do, the taking of a row of that email. So row of email ID. Okay, that you need to provide in the send email activity in the to form. Okay, this is how it will be executed. Okay, now we can see that reading from the multiple Excel sheet. In this same Excel, but it has the multiple sheets and storing this data into one dictionary. Okay, I will take a new process. Create a new one. So putting the data here. Let me open the Excel. So this is an employee data, like name and value pair. In the sheet one, I have the employee ID, employee name, and his name and email ID. And the sheet two, his location details. And sheet three, I have his designation. Okay. I want to read these three sheets and I will store this data into one dictionary because this is the important concept when you're working with the RE framework. So when you're working with RE framework, you have to read configuration data like information regarding that bot information and storing into one dictionary. You should pass this dictionary entire framework. So how it will happen? Let's see. Okay. So first I will take the read range activity. Again, I'm taking the read range activity from workbook because it's not required whether Excel is installed or not when it comes into read range Excel workbook activity. And it's very speed. Okay. I'm taking read range activity. I'm selecting the file path. EMPDT. Okay. When it comes into sheet, I have three sheets. I don't have like a single one. It has multiple sheets. How could I pass multiple sheet? So for this, we try to use for each loop. Okay. So I'm taking for each loop. in the for each loop, I need to provide the sheet names, okay, to iterate that. So inside that loop, I'm putting this read range activity because in the every iteration, like in the first one, it will provide the sheet one name, and second iteration, it will put the sheet name two, and the third iteration, it will pass the sheet name three. So for that, I'm creating one array here and putting the sheet names, sheet one, comma, sheet two, and sheet three. Okay. So every iteration, it will pass the sheet name. So the first iteration in the item holding the sheet one, and second iteration it holding the sheet two, and the third iteration it holding the sheet three. So I need to pass item here. When I'm executing it, it will get the sheet names. Okay. So it's throwing an error because I need to select the string data type. Okay, fine. So I'm creating a data table here. Control K, EMP, DT. So what it will happen when first iteration, it will read the data like his personal employee ID, name, email ID, and storing into employee DT. And the second iteration, it will read his location details. And third iteration, it will read his designation details and storing into one data table. Okay. So after that, I'm adding this values to the dictionary. So for that, I'm using for each data table. We take for each data table activity. So what is the data table name? EMPDT. Okay. So after that, I have to add this value to one dictionary. Let me create a dictionary first. Take an assign activity. Dictionary name is config. Control K. Config, I'm mentioning it. So let me select the variable as well. So I'm picking the dictionary from the selected type, system.collection.generic dictionary. So first one is string and second one is object, because first one is the name, second one might be integer data type, like it has special characters. So second one is I'm putting as an object. Okay. This is the expression you have to remember. New dictionary of string comma object. Okay, I have created an empty dictionary, and after reading all this data, Excel's data, and storing into this dictionary. Okay, for this I'm taking as an activity. I'm creating config of row of column name. What is the column name? Name. So passing the name here. In double quotes and name. So you need to convert into string because we have given a string data type. Okay. I need to pass the value as well. Row of value. Okay. So what we have done here, so we are creating one empty dictionary. So dictionary is nothing but key value pairs. So for example, I want to call this value like is employee ID. So what I will do, config of employee ID. So which means what are the value have updated here, that value will get into the workflow. Okay. If you have replaced this email ID with another email ID, that value, what are the value have provided, that will you get into the workflow. Okay. So now I want to call that to a message box. config of the name. What is the name? emp id dot toString. Okay. Before that, let me close this Excel file. Let me execute this one. So it will read the Excel sheet data one by one, sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, and adding the data into one data table. That data table adding the values to the dictionary. Now I'm get the 149. So if I change this value, so for 392, let me make it 800 201. Okay. Let me execute this one. So what are the latest value you have updated in the sheet that will be displayed? Okay. So this is how you're adding the data to the dictionary and using into the real-time projects. Fine. So this is the thing from my end about this. Mostly you have to focus as a layman. I mean, you're starting your career, right? So try to focus on basics like reading the data and posting the data into one data table. There you need to perform the operations. You should not provide. I mean, you should not perform the operation directly into Excel. Instead of that, read the data into data table. There you need to perform the filter operations, sorting operation, like ascending order, descending order, delete the duplicate rows like that. Once you have done, then you have to go with the advanced topics like link you queries. Okay, fine. Then. So, so Niklesh, I'm done. Hello, Kiran.
Yes, yes, yes.
Uh,
Yeah. I think Niklesh, like we are done with the session. We can just continue with the